Hey everybody, it's Eric alongside Rod with a lot to talk about with MSU's obliteration of Colorado in the first round of the Maui Invitational and their second round matchup against Memphis. Obviously, since it's a quick turnaround, we're just going to combine the shows here. A quick reminder that there are currently two things for you to get involved in. First, the Brothers Adjusted Gutters are offering a drawing for $300 of free gutter cleaning. If you want to enter that free drawing, just email me with your name and just use the word gutter in the subject line. That is going to be over, I'd say, before Thanksgiving. So we'll do the I'll probably do the drawing on Thanksgiving. The second thing is you have until December 3rd to enter our Beat Rod contest. You've heard the spiel before. Email both your entries to me, Eric at tffinots.com. All right, Rod, MSU running away from Colorado 72-56, despite shooting a dreadful 9.5% from three. And the Spartans did just about everything else right, well, offensively, but even more importantly, I thought, is really a stifling defensive effort after the first, we'll say 4 or 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes of the game. Solid rebounding throughout, and just too much for the Buffaloes to overcome. And one of the things we expected was a lot of turnovers from Colorado. It wasn't excessive. I mean, they certainly blew some of their opportunities to catch it back in the game, but there wasn't a huge edge there as we anticipated. But Michigan State everywhere else was just so much better. And really balanced scoring, balanced rebounding. It was, I mean, aside from Jace Richardson having a really great game, as he seems to always have now, was not one like amazing offensive performance from Michigan State, just enough from two, obviously, since they didn't hit any threes to really get the job done tonight.
Well, look, we've been saying the same thing game after game, and I hope that we can change it positively. But the truth of the matter is exactly what you saw today. This is a team playing very well in every phase of the game except one.
Yeah.
Now it matters. And
Yeah, absolutely.
going forward, like the next two games they're going to play in Maui, Memphis is one, and we don't know who the other opponent will be. Um, I think it get your margin for error if you can't shoot better than they have from three thus far shrinks, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I keep saying that's going to happen, and it hasn't happened yet. If it doesn't, are they going to struggle to win games against good opponents? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's no argument with that. Doesn't mean it's impossible on a game in, game out basis, but over the long haul, you're not going to be very successful if you can't shoot threes better than they have. But if and when that does fall into place, this and everything else stays intact, which I think it should, this can be a very good basketball team. Your Jay
Yeah.
Billis was basically saying that. And he was very impressed with the defensive effort. I was too. I thought that um, Michigan State did just a great job at getting through screens in this
Mm-hmm.
game. Sometimes they were switching, but a lot of times they were more frequently than I think we often see. They were going over the top. At least the guards were. I thought they did a very good job. I think they squared Colorado up. Colorado wasn't able really to successfully run much of anything in the half court. And as was noted during the game, it was a lot of east west and very little north south
Yeah.
for Colorado. And if that's going to be the way the game's played, then you better be an outstanding jump shooting team. And they
Right.
clearly weren't that, at least today. So that was the bottom line. I think you look up and down the stats, and it's funny. We had said that the profile of these teams was pretty similar in some ways. Michigan State had played better opposition, and so they didn't have the big edge in certain areas that you might expect. Didn't have a big edge in rebounding. They had an edge, just not a decisive one. You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned turnovers, which had been Colorado had just been horrific in turning the ball over. They weren't today. They only had
No.
one more than Michigan State. Um, Colorado was able to get to the line a little more often than MSU, 20 to 13 edge in free throw attempts, but they only made two more.
Yeah.
So neither team has been fouling a tremendous amount. And frankly, neither team fouled a huge amount in this game. The edge was, I think, clearly in 2-point shooting. I mean, Michigan State was 28 for 40 from two. Colorado conversely was 16 for 35.
Yeah.
So they were sub 50%. Michigan State was whatever.
70%.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge
It's
difference.
insane.
Now a lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of it was about Michigan State's transition game. We had talked about running being important. Well, MSU had a 22-6 fast break point edge, and that felt about right, I think, in terms of the tempo, but it wasn't all transition. I think Michigan State, it's interesting how a lot of guys that you aren't used to being trustworthy around the rim have actually been pretty good this year.
Yeah.
Carson Cooper, Cohen Carr hit a jump hook in this game. That was the most impressive. I mean, he had the dunks, but that was the most impressive thing I saw from him. I didn't know he had that. At the guards, Jeremy Fears had some incredible finishes in this game. Jace Richardson just continues to do what he's been doing from the moment he put on an MSU uniform. He just goes out and makes plays and plays smart, poised basketball with very little wasted effort, wasted motion. It all just looks very, very smooth, and the production is right where you want it to be. I thought Zapala was really good in this game. Just a lot of guys finishing around the basket, which is something that has plagued Michigan State really for the last few years. They haven't been a very good 2-point shooting team. They have been outstanding. Outstanding. I got to take a quick look at KenPom to see where they're at nationally. Yeah, they're number 20 in twos.
Yeah.
Right now, 60% in twos. So that's a big deal. Big. And if everybody wants to get hung up on the threes, I get it, because that's the easiest thing for fans to focus on, and it's not going well. But the reason they've still been winning, and even in the one loss they played, were right there, is because they're doing everything else so well. And a big part of that is the way they're shooting twos. So yeah, a lot of good things in this game. I mean, it's not going to excite people the way that, say, the first game did. One, because it wasn't that competitive. Two, because Colorado is not UConn.
Yeah.
But Michigan State won that game pretty decisively. I mean, Colorado made a little run in the early stages of the second half. I think they got it down to 7, is as close as they got it. And then Michigan State made another push, got it back up into the 11, 12, 13 area, and it was lights out.
Yeah. Well, the most obvious comment too is, of course, they hit the 2 threes near the end of that first half, and that really just separated the game. And if they're shooting 30%, which is not very good, that's another 4. That's another 12 points. I mean, it's like,
that's
like, this
thing.
is why, I mean, you could easily see it, like you said, a 30-point. They're just so close, and I know this team they're not going to be a 40% shooting team. It doesn't look like it. I mean, at this point, but
they're going to be an incredible run.
They're going to be 30%, like around 30,
you would hope,
at least,
right?
You
would hope, but honestly,
I guess you got to hit them at some point, right?
All that matters to me at this stage with regard to that is where they go from here.
Yeah, right.
What's done in the first 6 games is done. And it's bad enough that it's probably going to cap what you can do seasonally, unless you just went on an absolute crazy heater.
Yeah.
But I don't care.
No, because you don't get any awards for it. No one cares if you're the best free throw shooting team in the country or whatever, right?
If they can be even a 30% team, which, trust me, is not beyond them.
Right.
For the rest of the way, that's good enough. That's good enough that they do all these other things while they're going to be very competitive. Very competitive. I'm still bullish on this team. And in fact, if you believe in the law of averages and you believe in things coming to the mean, reverting to the mean, you would be very optimistic too, because the number one thing in the sport of basketball that is streaky, luck dependent, however you want to put it, is jump shooting. It's number one by a large margin. You can do everything right and still miss a shot. If you think that they're going to continue to roll snake eyes for another 3 months, okay. I don't. I don't.
It's
And the other things I'm seeing suggest to me that this is going to be a pretty good team when it's all said and done. I'm not ready to declare them Big Ten title contenders or a threat to go into the second weekend yet or any. It's too early for that. But the things that I would want to see, everything. I mean, just about everything on a team basis, at least. You
yeah.
could
Mhm.
nitpick at individuals, but everything on a team basis except 3-point shooting, I'm seeing
Yeah.
every single thing.
Yeah, I mean it's remarkable with it. They're 362nd in 3-point shooting at 20%. I'm looking at Torvik right now. That puts them still at the 59th ranking for offensive adjusted efficiency, which is amazing.
It's
And they're
ridiculous. Well,
12th in defensive efficiency, which is why you can have a game where you shoot
but it tells
9% and
you
with high volume and still win easily.
right, right. But it tells you how good everything else is. Now,
Exactly. Yeah.
now the shame of it is going to be if it wasn't to turn around or was to remain enough of a problem.
Right.
They could have kind of a feast or famine road from here and get the overall percentage, say up near 30, but without any real consistency and end up losing quite a few games because of that. That's
Mhm.
going to be very frustrating
Yeah.
because you're going to look at the rest of this team and say, man, they had everything else, everything.
Yeah. This for the first time in a number of years, and I don't even know how far back we have to go because it doesn't even feel like this is how Michigan State felt, even with Cassius and Tillman and going. And maybe it's just been so long I don't recall. This team feels like Michigan State, like the rebounding, the sort of everyone's going at the boards, both on the offensive defensive end. They play with toughness. They're going after every ball. I mean, they're not. I feel like the last few years, especially, there are a lot of rebounds and balls just kind of bouncing around, and no one's like being quick to the
Yeah.
ball. They're kind of like watching it.
Well, the competitiveness is
Yeah,
what you're
just
talking about.
yeah, like you
The
watch
com-
a
the,
car. Yeah, all those guys.
the compete level, and you're right. It's guys like Carr. I think Jackson Kohler being
Yep.
healthy,
Hmm.
competing. What guys like Jeremy Fears and Jace Richardson have injected
Yep.
into this team because Jace or Jeremy is essentially a new player.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, you're seeing that out of a lot of guys,
Yeah, and like you
and
mentioned, Zapala there too.
but
Fiddler
I
was getting
thought
into it a little bit more
you
today,
know
more than he has in the past.
yeah, and right, had some tough rebounds, some competitive rebounds today from Frankie. Yeah, there's a lot to like, a lot. And we're gonna go into Memphis in a bit. I know that there are probably, since this fan base is prone to Eorism, and
As
think
every
that
fan base is, let's be honest.
yeah, this one with less merit. That's
Well,
my
okay,
argument, with
sure.
less merit behind it. Um, and think that, oh, Memphis played a great game and beat the number 2 team in the country. We've got no shot. Wrong.
Yeah, didn't watch the game,
Wrong.
I guess.
Wrong. Well, look, Memphis played great, but there are some problems with
Hmm.
that team. And there are things that Michigan State absolutely has an edge in, and or should have an edge in based on the track record to date. And we're going to see. It's going to be a hell of a test. I don't mean to. That's going to take a very, very good effort from Michigan State to win. But yeah, this team is real. There's
Yeah.
you should be. I'm not saying be planning, buying your Final Four tickets yet, but just there are elements to this team, and that's going to hold true no matter what happens tomorrow and the day after that. There are things I've been seeing out of this team that make me very optimistic. Now, can they fix the one big problem area? And then on an individual basis, can they get through to some guys that have not been consistent yet and get some consistency out of them? Those things will all be very important, and those have to happen and evolve as the year goes on. But I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing from Michigan State thus far.
All right. Well, let's talk about Colorado just briefly. There's a player Michigan State needed to keep in the gutter. Brought to you by the Brothers of Just Two Gutters. It is gutter season, and as I mentioned before, there is the drawing for free $300 off gutter cleaning. So a normal house. That'll cover your gutters. If you're interested in a little bit more, they can certainly charge you a little bit more, but they'll give you the first $300 free. So it's a great deal. Costs you nothing to enter. Just send me your name and just in gutters in the subject line, you can get an opportunity to get that. And then maybe you could, or if or if you're not, or if you're interested in just in their services anyway, they can take care of other things. They can repair your gutters. They can replace them. They can put the gutter guards on, so you don't have to worry about gutter cleaning ever again, which is a wonderful thing if you've got some trees in your yard. And it is Michigan, so it tends to be a lot of that. We got you covered on the east side, the west side of the state. Greg and Kurt will take good care of you. You get 10% off your estimate if you mention Final Four when you reach out to them. You can find our ways to contact them at the support page at the Final Fours on the schedule.com/support. All right. So the player that Michigan State need to keep in the gutter, and I don't know, I must have the wrong number because I think it said 23 on the during the recording, and it was actually Julian Hammond. So he had a pretty good game for Colorado, and it's one of those where I don't think they kept him in the
Wait,
gutter. But,
what was he? I thought it was Jakomowski.
oh, wasn't it Jakomowski? It probably
Yeah,
was.
it was
Yeah, 23
Jakomowski
Jakomowski. Okay.
because he's their
Or
leading scorer. Yeah.
yes. Okay. So I did have the number right, but I circled the wrong one when we did the recording. So that explains why I was like, yeah, I thought that was the guy. Okay. So, and he definitely was kept in the gutter. 4 points, 1 for 7 from the field, 1 for 4
Yeah.
from 3, split a pair of free throws, 4 rebounds, 2 assists in 28 minutes. So he was completely neutralized. It looked, I want to say he hit his first 3, and then I don't think he hit anything after that. I mean, they pretty much just didn't let him do anything. Great help defense. And, Michigan State was a gap. What do they call it? A gap
Yeah,
defense.
they play with gap. Exactly. They play with gap principles. So
Right,
that's
principles.
that's
Yeah. And
referring
they did
to
a
it's
great
referring
job
to
of,
help.
yeah, exactly. So a lot of blocks down low. And so they didn't let anyone get going, or at least certainly not Yakomowski.
Yeah, outstanding job. And this is a game, as we talked about, that the physical mismatches were going to present some difficulties. And you
Yeah.
saw
You saw that
Colorado
all over. Yeah.
try to post them up. But man, Michigan guys like Jace Richardson, Jaden Akins, Jeremy Fears, they fought their asses off when they were in those situations. It was really impressive. And that was a big reason that Colorado struggled to get any offensive continuity going, I thought, was
Yeah.
that when they wanted to try to exploit physical advantages, they couldn't do it. And the reason they couldn't do it is Michigan State really, really fought them,
Yeah.
denied them spots they wanted to get to on the floor when they got the ball on a post up situation. They made them work. It was really, really impressive. And yeah,
Well,
they completely shut him down. And look, this is a guy who he was leading Colorado in scoring. Yes. He was just under a 10-point a game scorer last season at Washington State. So we're not
right.
talking about a proven 20-point a night guy, but he was the number 1 scorer in the lineup, and Michigan State really shut him down. So
Yeah.
I'd say a big positive.
And this one sequence, I think somewhere late in the second half where, it was Colorado's quite a bit far behind, but he was, I think he was close to the basket with Richardson on him, and Booker came over to block the shot. And in replay, it looked like actually Richardson blocked him.
Richardson got him
which
first.
was really impressive.
Could have, by the way, what happened probably cost him, in my opinion, or let's say might have cost him a jump ball call, because I thought Jace had his hand right there. It was the fact that Book came over and kind of emphatically behind him slammed it into the floor. I think that made the call go away. But Jace, you're right. Jace had his hand there. Those guys, I'm talking about Jace, Jaden Akins, Jeremy Fears, when they were in those positions all night, they worked their asses off against bigger opponents. Very impressive.
And then if it is still fall, which means there's still opportunities to get your window clean. And if you need your glasses cleaned in your house, make sure you contact the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. They can take care of that for you. They do fantastic work, whether it's your business, your home, your high rise, even the state capitol. The Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids can take care of it. They do meticulous work, whether it's inside windows, outside, screens, sills. They can also power wash your house too. They get up on the ladder so you don't have to, and you can stay safe, especially with the nice slippery weather right now. So be smart, have them come out and do it. 15% off if you mention Final Four when you get your estimate. Again, go to the support page at tffinots.com/support. You'll be glad you did. They took care of my house, and just incredible work, and the nicest people. And so the player that cleans the glass best, you're up 2-1. I picked Kohler, who had 6 rebounds. Well, it's interesting. Or 7 rebounds.
No, it's 7.
Yeah, he had 7 rebounds. You had Cooper. Cooper had 6. Zapala had 8. So we both lose. in that one. But I think, that really goes is these guys they contributed for a lot of rebounds. I mean, that's 21 rebounds out of Michigan State's 42. So they had half of them.
And then Frankie Feather with 6, Jace Richardson with 4 from the wing group, and Jaden Akins had 3. So it was a nice mix of the big men doing what they've been doing pretty consistently. We haven't had Jackson's been the one guy who's broken out, had like a couple of games where he had double digit rebounding numbers, but generally speaking, this is the kind of thing we're seeing, you know, and yeah, it was very, very good. I thought it was a really impressive effort. The numbers don't look eye popping because, well, we'll get to it when we get to the keys,
Yeah,
but
with the keys,
they
but
don't
yeah.
look eye popping on the offensive end. But man, they just shut Colorado down
Yeah, I
in
mean, I think it
terms of
just
defensive rebounding.
is a reflection of just the competitiveness as you mentioned before.
Yeah,
I mean, they just
it's
were really competing hard there.
gang rebounding in this
Yeah.
game.
It's old Michigan
Absolutely.
State basketball. That's what we just have not seen for a
Yeah.
couple of years now.
And,
So it's
and
nice to see it.
and special credit to Zapala. He had 5 offensive rebounds. He was the only guy who had more than one.
Yeah.
And turned a couple of those into buckets, if I
Hmm.
recall correctly.
Yeah.
So really, really fought. And that was the thing. I mean, fight is a good word for it because a lot of it was Michigan State just out toughing Colorado. And they're going to need to do more of that tomorrow night, by the way. That's going to be a big key against
Yeah.
Memphis. But they definitely did it tonight against a bigger opponent. There were several times where Colorado had a guy there too, and Michigan State just wanted it more, just out toughed them.
Yeah. Because you definitely saw the struggle on the free throw line because there's so much size in Colorado. I mean, they had, 4 guys in the who are like 6'8", 6'9", and the ball, especially some of those free throws, were really bad, and so they really bounced some ways, and it was tough to secure those rebounds because
Yeah.
so it was impressive and they just outfought them for almost all of them. I think
Yep.
maybe they got one, so that was very encouraging.
Yep.
Then moving on to the keys to the game, brought to you by Nudge Printing. Nudge Printing provides all our prizes for our contests, and especially the Beat Rod contest. We get up to $100 of free stuff from Gabe and Brittany at Nudge Printing. They have high quality apparel. It's all made in Michigan. It's screen printed in Portland, Michigan. They ship it out to you. They're one of the few licensed dealers of actually Michigan State logos. They have rights to all the vintage ones. And so if you like those old time Dunking Sparties or Gruff Sparty stuff, that's the place to go. You can't find it anywhere else. And so you can check out their large selection at their website, nudgeprinting.com, where you can get hoodies, t-shirts, zip ups, jackets. We've got a lot of that stuff in our family, and it's their favorite stuff. When we've had logo shirts for the show, we've got them to Nudge Printing, and people love those hoodies. I just had a couple left over, gave some away to some other folks, and they wear them all weekend, despite Michigan State's pathetic play on the football field this last week. But anyway, head on over to Nudge Printing. You won't regret it. The keys to the game, we'll start with number 1, which was threes. Well, I think we'll kind of put that to rest. The 9.5%. I don't know if there's much more to say about that, except they just got to get better. And they're wide open too. I mean, they're all good looks.
Yeah.
I mean, like 90% of them are like ones
Well,
that you'd expect them to knock down.
And keep in mind, Colorado spent large portions of that game playing varying types of zones. There's a lot of
wisely so, because they're not hitting shots.
Right. What a lot of 1-3-1, some 2-3. And yeah, and you would, that Billis mentioned on the broadcast, Tad Boyle is primarily a man-to-man coach. And so he doesn't want to play zone. They don't typically play that much zone, but it was the right thing. And look, I think if this continues, Michigan State's going to see a lot of that. The good news is if you move the ball the way Michigan State does against a zone, generally, and I think this was mostly the case today. You're going to get good looks.
Well,
so they're going to have
2.
They're going to have great opportunities to get wide open shots. You've just got to hit them.
Yeah,
that's I guess right. My point is the chance to get on a roll is going to be there for them.
Yeah, but they're not struggling with contested threes. They're good looks.
Yep.
Second key to the game was pace, and absolutely. I mean, at this point, I don't know what more you can say about Michigan State, but they got a great pace. Colorado wasn't a slow team, but they weren't like a super fast team, and Michigan State pushed it all the time, got a lot of easy baskets, both in transition where they finished with 22-6 edge and fast break
Yeah.
points. And
Yeah.
then we always have with a secondary break where they're still shooting within the first 10 seconds or so of the offense. They're getting a lot of work done easily. And all those twos are close, which makes, you're shooting 70%. They're not long jumpers.
Look, there's part of the reason, and this is difficult to quantify, but I don't think it should be difficult to understand if you watch the game. Part of the reason they are top 20 in the country in twos is that they are playing this fast. So yes, transition is part of that. You're always, one on none, usually a pretty good percentage that you're going to shoot, right?
Yeah.
When you beat the other team down the floor. But I think it's also making a big difference in the half court because as we've spent a lot of time talking about, they get into their sets, they get into half court offense so much quicker than they were last season.
No,
And when you
no 5 second, right? We were
no,
never inside 5 seconds, I don't
and
think.
when you do
Once.
that, and when you do that, your odds are better just because you've got more time to, basically the name of the game in defense truly is how long can you go before you have a breakdown?
Right.
That's really it. Because the idea offensively is, you know, you look to gain an advantage over a defensive player and generate an easy makeable shot. And
Right.
it is very difficult for teams to play for long stretches. But the problem last year was Michigan State, oftentimes teams were basically having to play, you know, 15 seconds of actual
Right.
defense.
Exactly.
That's not the case with this team. If they're not getting a shot quicker than that, they're forcing you to play longer segments and more than that, the motion, the ball movement and the man movement is, I think, so much crisper and so much better. And the offense is so much more aggressive. We talk about Colorado playing this game mostly east west. Michigan State has been playing a lot of north south.
Yes, exactly.
And that's via
Yeah.
penetration, that's via occasionally dumping the ball into the post, but it's happening consistently. So, yeah, I think all of that good stuff is a byproduct to some extent, and I think a very significant extent, of the way that Michigan State plays from a pace perspective.
Yeah, little hats off. We got some post play today too. Cooper had a couple buckets that were actually post, and Kohler had one or two, I think. And
Carr was
so,
really good.
yeah, Carr was good.
Had a couple of buckets at the rim. I mean, they
Yeah.
did Zapala. They did a lot of good. And again, this group of guards is finishing. Now, they didn't
Yes.
finish everything, but they finished a lot. And, that's a difference. You get Jace Richardson, Jeremy Fears, Trey Holloman. These guys are, I think, as a group, it's just going to be a better, more consistent team from that perspective.
Yeah.
They are going to finish plays at a rate that we didn't always see last year.
Well, and as an aside, I watched. I was texting you the other day. So of course, my dad's team is Drake. They're playing in the championship game, the Charleston Classic. They're playing Vanderbilt, who of course now has AJ Hogard. And it was interesting watching AJ play, and Drake's defense looked really good. But partly it is, as you mentioned, they only had to play defense for like 18 seconds or 15 seconds
Yeah.
because you have a very slow pace, and Vanderbilt had really struggled getting some good shots against them because they didn't have much time. And so that was not always. AJ
They
does
don't
not
have
play as
much.
big a role as he did at Michigan State, but certainly that he was not helping
They
or
don't have
finishing.
they don't have as much time, and then maybe just as importantly, even when they're having to play defense, they're not being tested the same way that
Right.
they are
Yeah,
this year because
exactly.
the movement is not as good as it is with this year's team.
Yeah. Well, like you said, if you're moving east west, it's a lot easier to guard that than some people who are always cutting
Now,
towards the basket. They can kick out or
now
whatever and
look,
angles.
it's absolutely also a truism. I don't want to knock east-west movement
No,
entirely
no. Yeah, you
because
have to.
swinging the ball, moving the ball side to side is also a core element of good offensive play. But it's when that's all you do And we've seen it. We've seen it at Michigan State in recent
Yeah.
years, where it's just the ball's just going around the horn and not with any particular pace. It's just kind of moving around and nothing's happening. And you have no north-south dynamic. And even when it's going east-west, it's not going at a good clip. You have a problem.
Yep. All right. So the third key of the game was the boards. And this is, I think we were mainly focusing on offensive and just extra possessions. Michigan State was actually in the mid 30s, and then they didn't get any, then they had a bunch of shots and they didn't get rebounds. So they ended up about 29% from offensive rebounding rate, which is okay. They held Colorado to 21%. Colorado's averaging what, 30 some percent. They're about the same as Michigan State, like
They were
36%. So they
30,
really,
between 36 and 37%.
and
Yeah.
again, as we mentioned, that is a big team. So it's very
Yep.
impressive. And a team that missed plenty of shots. There's plenty of opportunities.
Yeah.
They missed 34 and they only had 7 offensive rebounds. So great for Michigan State, and also just overall rebounding. Michigan State won 42-29. So to dominate the team that's much larger than you, it just shows the mentality is just different this year than it's been in the past.
Also had an edge of 13-7 in second chance points. So they
Right.
turned those 9 offensive rebounds into 13 second chance points. So reasonably good production there. Yeah, it's you'd like to see the offensive rebounding total be a little bit better, but I'm not upset about it. As you say, there was some stuff late that brought that percentage down a little bit. But when you're facing a team that has rebounded well and has a significant size advantage at many positions, you're going to take this kind of performance every time. I thought Michigan State on the defensive glass was just lights out.
Yeah, they're very good. Well, 21% offensive rebound rate. That sells a story right there.
That is a lights out performance against any high major opponent. You are going to be impressed with that. And again, this was not, Colorado is not, I don't know, a team like we've seen many years from a Wisconsin or a Northwestern, where it's not even part of the strategy. It's not even part of the game. They were trying to get offensive rebounds. They were competing in there. Michigan State just outcompeted them frequently.
And to kind of go, and what's most impressive, I think, about that is not only was Michigan State getting defensive rebounding well, and part of that is you watch and there are 4 guys rebounding. I mean, everybody's in there getting it. And even then, they're still running. Like they're still getting fast big points, even with everyone, not sprinting down the floor. Because last year you felt like half the team sprinting down the floor. They missed some, give up some offensive boards because people have taken off too soon. And this year, I mean, they're still getting the fast break and they're rebounding. So, I mean, it just shows you don't have to do it. It's not like an either or. You can kind of do both.
Right.
Fourth key to the game was turnovers. We had mentioned before, Colorado turned the ball over almost like a quarter of their possessions. They were much better disciplined this time with 12 turnovers. I think there's a number of ones they had that were like inopportune times for them where they maybe got a stop or got a turnover at Michigan State and then they'd like throw it away. So it was, kind of helped Michigan State in that sense. So there's no edge there, which we thought Michigan State would need to win easily, but they just kind of did everything else really well.
Yeah. And, a heavy percentage of their turnovers, it was, I forget what it was a very high percentage were off opponent steals.
Yeah. And it wasn't
in this game was only 50%. Michigan State had 6 steals. They had 12 turnovers total. So, it was not the game I expected to see from Colorado in that regard, but I will say there were a handful of moments where you saw why.
Yes.
Where they just made just inexplicably awful passes and decisions. And so I could watch that game and say, yeah, this is a team that's gonna, and they will. I think they'll continue to have problems in that area because I just don't think they have enough guard play. Yep. They've got guys that they have to use as quasi guards that I don't think are guards.
Right.
So,
all right. So the fifth and final key to the game was the free throw line. Michigan State's been averaging 26 or so, 27 free throws a game. Clearly, we're near that today. And, they were 10 for 13, which is, as you mentioned before, Colorado got there 20 times, but only hit 2 more free throws despite that, which is well below their average for free throw shooting this year too. Part of it, I just felt like Colorado wasn't even close enough to even make contact in a lot of those, the baskets that Michigan State scored on. So they really couldn't even draw any fouls.
Yeah. I didn't think, well, I'll say this. I thought it was and this has been true of both of the Maui games that I've watched that have been played thus far. We'll see if it continues. I thought it was strangely officiated in terms of the contact that was called and the contact that wasn't. There were multiple Michigan State finishes around the basket that should have been and ones that weren't. I have no idea what the guy thought he saw. And conversely, there were fouls called both ways that I just thought, well, the big one was one each team with the slip,
Oh yeah,
and there's
Trey
no
Holloman's, and then
contact.
the other one
Yeah,
that
this
got called
crew,
on
this
Booker.
crew kind of struggled in that regard. But yeah, we had said the interesting thing was going to be both Michigan State and Colorado also do a pretty good job of avoiding committing fouls. And so I think that played in. Colorado did get 20 attempts, probably a little bit more than MSU would have liked to have seen, but still quite a bit below their seasonal average. And Michigan State only got 13. But they made 10 of them. Despite
Yeah.
a seven differential in attempts, it was only a -2 in makes. So, once again, Michigan State, I think, used the free throw line and the other thing too is that, and God bless Tad Boyle for doing this, over the last 4 minutes, when the game was clearly decided, he didn't go into
Right.
automatic foul mode, which would have increased. Michigan State probably would have shot 6 or 8 more free throws. And he opted not to do that, which thank God, merciful end to a game in a sport, which rarely seems to have that. But yeah, not a big part. But look, on the season, we know what this Michigan State team has been in that regard, and I didn't see anything today that made me think that they're not going to continue to be very effective getting there.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so Michigan State then advances. We'll talk briefly about the next opponent, the Memphis Tigers. Memphis with a surprising upset at number 2, Connecticut. Although at this point of the year, we don't really know who any of these teams are. Memphis came in 4-0. They hadn't played anyone. They hadn't lost. They're but they showed that they were a good team. They actually had a very sizable, easy win against Connecticut, and then they just totally fell apart. I think it was an 18-5 run to finish the game.
Yeah.
Regulation, where Connecticut came back and tied it. And then they managed to pull it off in overtime, and thanks in part to Danny Hurley's technical foul and going crazy about a call, which we've talked about in the past, just his temper's like just totally out of this world.
Well, I want to talk about that for a second, just not because it affects Michigan State, but
yeah, go ahead.
They're not going to see UConn in this thing. But,
right.
When Michigan State, I will bring people's minds back to the battle for Atlantis. And this was, I think it was Gabe Brown and Marcus Bingham's senior year.
Okay.
Where they played there, beat UConn, beat somebody else, I think, beat UConn, lost to Baylor.
Right.
But in the UConn game, it was extremely close. And there was a call that I can't even remember the nature of the call now that went against UConn, and a timeout ensued. And Bobby Hurley spent the entire timeout, screaming at the officials. And I remember thinking to myself as I'm watching it, not only is this guy a lunatic, he's going to cost his team the game, because there's no coach I can think of. Tom Izzo would have given his 15, 20 seconds to the officials and then got back in the huddle and coached his team. I can't think of anybody else I've ever seen do that. He was at the handshake line. He was late to the handshake line after the game ended because he was continuing to berate these guys. I could read his lips, what he was saying at certain points. There was a point where he said to the official after one play that they went to the monitor, and by the way, got the call right. He said, "Get away from me. I don't want to hear anything you have to say." He should have been teed up then.
Yeah.
Who the hell is he? The problem is he won these 2 national titles, and kudos to him for coaching them, and kudos to their program and all the rest. But, and it proved me wrong in one sense. I remember saying after that Michigan State win over UConn, I don't know that, because they had a very good team that year too. They had a lot of talent, interesting pieces. But I remember saying, I don't know that they're ever going to get over the hump with this guy. because in high level games that are competitive and close, and the outcome can hinge on a call or two, or especially if you let it, this guy loses his shit. He
Right.
can't, and that has to, now credit to him. He found a way the last 2 years to override that. I happen to think part of it, particularly last year, is they were so good that they didn't play in a ton of competitive games. I'd have to go
No.
back and see how many they played in, but it wasn't a lot. Certainly not in the NCAA tournament. That was one of the more dominant runs we've seen a team have. Even the Purdue game, they won
Yeah, it
pretty
wasn't that
easily.
close. Yeah,
They
right.
won pretty easily. So he hasn't been in a lot of these moments in the last couple of years. So after seeing today, I don't think he's changed. I think he's the same guy. And I also said this on the Spartan Mag board, and I mean this. I think there's a non-zero chance that he puts his hands on an official at some point this year, because I think that his team, while good, is not where they've been the last couple of years. I think they're going to find themselves, especially in the first half of the season, as the guys are trying to adjust to new roles. They have some freshmen, some transfers, what have you. They're going to be in a lot of games like this one was today. And those are the games where calls are a big deal.
Yeah.
Because it's tight. I put this right where I put Juwan Howard, long before it all went bad. Now, if that does happen, it will be an incredibly interesting test of the old saw that winning forgives all sins.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, that's where he's heading.
Yeah.
This guy completely lose. You could talk about, we were having a discussion on the Spartan Mag board. Talk about anybody you want. Izzo is not even in the same universe as this clown. Bob Knight would not do some of the stuff that Bobby Hurley does.
Yeah.
He also, at another point in that game, told the lead official, you don't belong here. I understand he's won a couple national championships, but who the hell does he think he is? And I'm serious. They should have thrown it. He should have been gone at halftime. He did. And the call, when they finally did tee him up late, he earned that one by virtue of the totality of the 45 minutes. He should have been tossed long before it. So I think they're going to be a really interesting case study. And it also, the other thing that makes me wonder about is, and they always used to talk about this with regard to Izzo when it was mentioned, him taking NBA jobs. But this guy coming, relatively close, I guess, to taking the Lakers job. If he's in the end, I do have to wonder.
There'd be no tolerance for that. No.
Would that active, would he have been told, you got to stop this? And they made him stop. I just, you can't get away with it. You get away with a lot more of that stuff, and you see it much more frequently in the college game. That's just a fact, that coaches, working officials, all of that, much more frequent in the college game for a lot of different reasons. But it does make me wonder what would happen to this guy if he goes up to the pro level.
Yeah. Well,
because I don't think he can control himself. I think it's beyond him.
I think you're right. And his post-conference or post-game conference was interesting, where he's came around and said those are bad calls and bench the specific, instance. So he'll be fine for that, I'm sure, by the whatever, the Big East or whoever it is.
But what,
whether he cares or not.
Look, I'm all for honesty, and there's nothing wrong with if you, by the way, he's absolutely wrong about every one of, well, I shouldn't say everyone, because he bitched about every call. So he was probably right de facto a few times. But the big ones, the ones where he really lost his mind, he was wrong about every one of them from my perspective. And I'm saying that as a neutral. I'm not a Memphis fan. I could care less. But he's walking a tightrope. And I think I'm not going to be surprised if there's an incident at some point this year, just because I think they're going to be in many more games that are going to make those kind of moments more possible.
We'll talk briefly about Memphis, Michigan State's upcoming opponent tomorrow. I've just got the Torvik up. Their adjusted efficiency, they're 22nd, so they're a very good offensive team. They're 59th in defense, which is pretty good. Effective field goal percentage, they're 28th. They're second in three-point shooting. It's almost 48% for the year. They're shooting about 50% from twos. They're 75%.
Which is not great.
No,
that's
210th. Yeah, I have 205. So, whatever different
Well,
measures, but
I'm looking at Ken Palm. Yeah.
yeah, but either way, yeah, 200s. Um, their free throw rate is pretty good at seventh. So they get to the line a lot. And I think that's really all that shoots points out to me. I mean, their defense, they're pretty good from 2-point defense. Their 3-point defense is
That's
not very good.
that's what
Uh,
they're hanging their hats on. If you want to talk about the defense, they're hanging their hats on their 2-point defense.
yeah,
They've been very, very good. They're holding teams to about 46% on twos, which is doing good work. It's not
yeah.
great, but it's good.
And then
Everywhere else,
I was just gonna say on
they're
a turnover real
mediocre to
quick.
bad.
Yeah, turnover is they're averaging almost 20% turnover rate, which is 264. So a little better than Colorado, but not a lot. And their offensive rebounding rate is okay at 30%. So that puts them kind of middle of the pack in the
Yeah.
country.
Offensively, it's primarily about two things. 3-point shooting, which has been the second in the country, so you can't be much better than that. And free throws, both the frequency of getting to the line and their ability to convert them. They're shooting 75% as a team, which is,
Right.
not earth shattering, but it's solid. And especially when you're getting there a lot, that's really good.
Yeah.
They're a mediocre offensive rebounding team. They've been terrible turning the ball over, very loose. They don't shoot twos very well, 210th.
Yeah.
So and the interesting thing here is too, um, the 3-point shooting percentage is lights out, but the frequency is low. They're only 285th in 3-point shots attempted as a percentage of overall shots attempted. So well in the bottom 50%, really close to being in the bottom quarter. The frequency that they make them puts them in, a position where they're getting decent production out of that shot anyway. But this is not a team that's going out looking to attempt 43s.
Yeah.
They don't play that way. So interesting team. They also play very fast, 57th in tempo,
Right.
56th in average length of offensive possession. So interesting team offensively. Defensively, again, they're hanging their hats on the way they're defending twos. And they're also a decent shot blocking team, which goes along with that. But they've been actually pretty bad as a defensive rebounding group, which tells me that maybe they're hunting blocks a little more than they should be. They're giving up, they're fouling people. They're giving up a fair amount of fouls. 233rd in a foul rate. And they're right middle of the pack in terms of generating turnovers. So they're not a big team in that respect. So this is what I mean. If your only exposure to Memphis was watching them play UConn, and you assume that UConn is in fact the second best team in the country, which you mentioned at the outset, we're still in what, the third, fourth week of the season?
Yeah.
We don't know yet who's
Yeah.
number two. I would tell you this. I don't think it's UConn. Okay. That doesn't make them a bad team. It doesn't even make them a team that's not capable of winning another national title. But I don't think it's UConn at the moment.
Yeah.
Still, not taking anything away from Memphis. That was a classic game. Guys on both teams made huge shots, big plays. The concern, I guess, if you're Memphis, is, and you mentioned this, the way they frittered away that lead. They were up. What were they up 13 with about 4
Yeah.
minutes
Because
and
it's
change to
18-5 to
go?
run. Yeah. It must have been 13. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just all the things. What I was really impressed by, even though their defensive profile is, good, not great, I thought for 90% of that game, they were phenomenal in the way they defended UConn. They made, we're used to UConn the last couple of years, just with all their movement and cutting and team passing, just slicing and dicing people up, right? We've seen
Yeah.
it over and over. You didn't see that against Memphis. And yeah, UConn's got different personnel, and they haven't been tested. I mean, Memphis at least had played Missouri and UNLV. They
Yeah.
played a couple decent teams, but UConn hadn't played anybody. So we don't know yet how crisp UConn's offense actually is. But I still thought Memphis looked very good in terms of what they were able to take away until that last 3 minutes or so, when they just
Right.
kept, and give credit to UConn for hitting the
Yeah.
shots.
Making shots. Yeah.
They hit big three after big three, but those were all open shots.
Yeah.
The last one that tied it in regulation um, by a ball, I think it was solo ball, was the only tough one in the whole bunch.
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah,
funny. I'm looking at the defensive ratings for that game for Memphis. They gave up, they
yeah.
had effective field goal percentage gave up of 60%. They offensive rebounding rate of 40%. And so like some big red numbers against UConn in that game. I'm like you. I didn't think they had that bad. They were okay
Well,
from two, but they were bad from three is really what
they got,
happened,
yeah,
which has
and
got
that's
ding
the,
at the end.
but I thought they did a pretty good job of limiting you because UConn's got some real shooters.
Yeah.
And I thought they did a really good job until that last stretch of limiting the threes. And then UConn with those, and even in overtime, UConn hit at least one or two. It didn't end up mattering in terms of the decision, but um, I thought that it was an impressive job for Memphis until it wasn't.
Yeah. That sums it up well. All right. So let's talk about which player, and we're not going to go through all the players like we usually do, but just we mentioned briefly a few players. I mean, Dane Dange's back. He's much
Yeah.
like Hunter Dickinson. You can't get away from these guys. So Dane Dange's there on team. But who do you think Michigan State needs to keep in the gutter? Brought to you by the
Well,
Brothers Just Gutters.
it's interesting. Their leading scorer by a considerable margin is PJ Haggerty, who is their point guard, and he's a transfer from Tulsa. He was the American Freshman of the Year and an All Conference guy as a true freshman, and he transferred to Memphis. And he's averaging 22 points a game. He scored a bunch in this game. This is a guy who Frankie Fiddler thinks gets a lot of calls because he's in 5 games, he's averaging 10 free throw attempts a game.
Whoa.
He's shot 50 free throws and he's made 42 of them. So
Yeah.
that's got a lot to do with his scoring, but he shot the three reasonably well, 44%. He's also
Yeah.
able, I will say this though about Haggerty. Haggerty is a guy that, um, in my observation, if you can avoid fouling him, which
Yes.
is a big if, he takes some wild shots. I mean, wild.
So just looking for contact more than even almost looking to
Yeah,
put it in. Yeah.
yeah, and much worse, more dramatic than say a Frankie Fiddler does. I mean, it's extreme. So consequently, if Michigan State can somehow avoid hacking him, or they just aren't called for it, and he throws those shots up looking to be bailed out, Michigan State may be in an okay position. But look, he's off to an incredible start for the season. But I still think their best player, and the guy I'm going to pick is and by the way, with Haggerty, 16 assists in 5 games, 21 turnovers. And they put him on the ball a lot. I frankly I did not understand that because they have another guy, Tyrese Hunter, who I think is actually their best player. And Tyrese Hunter was their best player today. I think he had 26, which led them in this game. Tyrese Hunter is a 4-year starter at his third school. He played his freshman year at Iowa State, was a starter, very good player. Played 2 years at Texas, was a very good player and a starter there. And now he's at Memphis and he's a starter and a very good player there. um, Tyrese Hunter is averaging 15.8 points a game, so about 6.5 points less per game than Haggerty. But I think he's the guy I would pick
Yeah.
because he's shooting 46% from the floor, 54%, 15 for 28 from three, and 12 for 16 at the line. He's also got 19 assists to lead the team and only 12 turnovers. I say only, that's still not great, but it's better than anybody else by a wide margin. So he's the only guy with double-digit assists who's got a positive assist to turnover ratio. So that tells a story, right?
Yep.
But Tyrese Hunter is my pick just because I think he's so mature and such a talented kid. Like he's fast, he's tough, he's got enough strength, he can finish plays. He obviously can shoot the ball. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's got a 4-year track record of doing it too. So I'll go with him over Haggerty, who might be the more obvious choice.
All right. So we are 6 games of the season so far, and you and I have correctly predicted the player who cleans the glass best, brought to you by the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids 3 times. So you're up 2-1. You get to pick first for this game, and who do you pick for Michigan State to clean glass best?
I'm going to go with Jackson Kohler. He came
Yeah, I mean
close
he was so
today,
close. Yeah.
one off. I'm going to go with Jax.
Well, I think we're just creatures of the past, so I'm gonna go with Sapala since I got the second pick, and we'll see if he can keep it rolling here. Maybe he's got getting something going here in Maui. So we'll see if his activity pays off and he gets a second opportunity because
I thought about him. I really
yeah,
did
well, I mean, they're the obvious choices. And Cooper almost came from behind. He really started racking them up at the end of the
because I
game
think
there.
I think Memphis has big men that are legit big men that
Yeah,
you've got to deal with. You mentioned Dane Danger, and we know what he is, right? He's a
yeah.
load in the post. You gotta kind of like today with the kid that Colorado had, except I think Danger is a little better. You got to be able to load up physically against him. So this is not a game where I think you're going to see Michigan State going small ball. I think you're going to see a lot of Zapala and a lot of Cooper because they also have Musa Sisse, who's a welcome to modern basketball. This guy started at Memphis. I believe he's played a couple other places, and now he's back. Figure that out. But Sisse is not the scorer that Danger is, but he's another big body. And if you don't check him with a big body, he could do more damage than you'd think because he'll just physically overpower people. So I think this is a game where you're going to see the big men play.
So actually, as you point out, he started at Memphis, played 2 years at Oklahoma State, a year at Mississippi, and now he's at
Yeah.
Memphis again in his fifth in COVID year.
Three schools, but really four because it's
Yeah,
Memphis twice.
right. Exactly. So then we go on to our nudge printing keys to the game. Again, brought to you Nudge Printing. Check them out. 20% off if you type in Final Four and checkout at nudgeprinting.com as a listener of the show. So the first key of the game is defending the three. Obviously mentioned second best 3-point shooting team in the country. This kind of reminds me, it feels a little bit like Baylor, except they're not as good an offensive rebounding team as Baylor was, but definitely the team that relies heavily on outside shooting.
Well, they do and they don't. I mean,
Well, right. That's,
it's
I guess
been a
volume's not high, but they're accurate.
yeah, it's been a critical part of their offense. But here's the thing. So on the season through 5 games, they've taken 42 fewer attempts from three than their opponents. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the world because when you're playing, we talk about this all the time. Michigan State is playing these non-conference games, against a Samford. Well, you expect they're going to take more threes than you, right?
Right.
But it includes the game today against UConn. It includes a game against Missouri, who's an SEC team. It includes a game against UNLV, which is a Mountain West team, so a mid-major plus. So
Mm-hmm.
Memphis has not played, the kind of teams that you would expect to throw up 43s because they know it's their only chance at winning. And they're still minus 42 in attempts. Now, what's interesting is, despite that disparity, they're only -2 in makes on the year, despite opponents
Yeah.
taking 42 more threes. So it shows you how good they've been when they've shot them. All that said, if Michigan State can find a way to limit the quality of look that Memphis gets, it will be a big deal. I don't expect Memphis to go crazy with them. I don't think Memphis is going to see Michigan State and say, guys, we're only averaging, what would it be? They're not even averaging 20 attempts a game. They're averaging about 19 attempts per game. I don't think they're going to see Michigan State say, guys, we got to get up 30. Maybe that happens through the flow of the game, but I'd kind of doubt it.
Yeah.
But man, if you can hold them down from whatever, I guess they're making,
48% almost. Yeah.
almost 9 point something per game makes. If you can hold them to 7,
Yeah.
6,
Sure.
that would be a big deal. So it's actually a lot like Michigan State has been in recent years, where the percentage is outstanding. And yeah, it matters for them offensively for sure. But it's not like that is the be all and end all of their offensive
Right.
focus because they really don't take a ton of them.
Yeah. All right. So the second key to the game is the boards. Michigan State had another great performance on the boards against Colorado. Memphis is not a good rebounding team on either end. As we mentioned, they're pretty mediocre on the offensive end. So opportunity for Michigan State to get some extra chances to score here on the offensive end and to limit Memphis, and defensively to stay strong, you got to clear the boards and restart your possession.
Look, I think having seen Memphis in that game against UConn, And, Memphis has, because they've used the portal aggressively, they've got a lot of guys with experience on that roster. They got a lot of fourth and fifth year guys. It's a team of men, and
Yeah.
frankly, looking at the way they played today and who they are, it's surprising to me that they are this bad as a rebounding team. Again, I said, offensively, it's just more in the mediocre category than bad. But defensively, they're bad. And the only thing I can figure, and you saw a little bit of it in this game today, there were times where I thought they were too aggressive in hunting blocks, and they fell prey to what often happens to teams that do that. They took themselves out of good defensive rebounding position and gave some up. Michigan State has done a really good job on the glass this year. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. Currently, and this is surprising because I thought it would be even better than this. They're 59th in offensive rebounding. So today they slipped a little bit in that category, but still pretty good. 42nd, up to 42nd in defensive rebounding. So you're talking about top 60 both ends, and with one more good game, probably back in the top 50 both ends.
Yeah.
That's an edge. That's an area where, at least according to the numbers, and you can't say Michigan State hasn't seen high major opponents, big opponents, good opponents. I think it's a real number, as much as a number can be real after 6 games. This is an area where they should have an advantage. So they got to make it actually be one if they're going to win this game.
And the third key to the game is turnovers. As I mentioned, the Tigers are pretty bad. They're not as bad as Colorado, but they're still pretty terrible. 259th in turnover percentage. Almost 20% of their possessions end up in a turnover. So there's an opportunity for Michigan State to get a couple extra possessions and extra shots up, obviously, which gives you better chance to score.
Yeah. Michigan State right now is turning the ball over 16% of the time, which is 100th, which I think is their worst standing of the season thus far.
Yeah. They've had 2 bad games compared to the previous games.
Yeah. And it wasn't horrible.
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't disaster. No, it was just, yeah.
Well, Memphis is 258th, almost 20%.
Yeah.
So if these are, these 2 areas that we've just talked about, rebounding and turnovers, we always talk about these pretty much any game we ever preview, because it's such a key in winning. When you get more shot attempts, you get more chances to score than the opponent. And particularly if you're worried about Memphis going crazy from 3, like even if they're not taking a ton of them, they're shooting well. That's one way you can even it up. You get more chances to score. And frankly, that's what this Michigan State team has, one of the things it's been riding on, because it's been operating at a deficit. Now, the funny thing is, there haven't been very many games. I'm trying to think, has there been any game where somebody just shot the lights out against them from 3? I don't think that's happened yet.
Not when you hit like 5 or 6, I don't think.
In fact, Michigan State, no, there haven't, because Michigan State is 64th against threes. They're holding opponents to 28.4%. So even that problem area has not been as big a problem as you would expect.
Right.
But even if it is, even if Memphis gets rolling from 3, one way you can offset that is by doing the things we've talked about, minimizing your mistakes, maybe forcing them into a few more than they want to make, and this team's prone to make them, and getting second chances and not giving them up on your defensive end.
Yeah, but the only thing that Michigan State is bad on defense is their free throw defense. It's still lacking, giving up 74% from the free throw line. So moving on to the next key to the game, which is tempo. And this is one thing that Michigan State has done great in. I mean, at some point that's just who they are, but obviously Memphis likes to play pretty fast too. So it'll be question always, how do they respond to Michigan State playing Michigan State basketball, which they have been doing this year for the most part.
Average length of offensive possession so far, Memphis is 55th in the country, Michigan State 74th. So these are 2 top 75 teams in offensive tempo. That they're both going to want to play fast. Generally speaking, I welcome that if I'm Michigan State.
Yeah.
You know, an opponent that wants to play fast, great. Now, Memphis is not like a trapping pressure kind of team. They just it's primarily generated, much as it is for Michigan State. It's generated by virtue of how fast they play when they get the ball in their hands. So how quickly they're getting a shot up in the half court, and then whatever they can get done in transition. Uh, I think that I think that this is another area where, even though Memphis likes to play fast, I think there's an advantage here for Michigan State.
And the fifth and
Um,
final. Oh, I
I
was just
think
say the
that
fifth.
I think that the advantage is that I think Michigan State is less likely to make mistakes
Yeah.
in transition, so they're more likely to capitalize on the opportunities that they get. And I think that could be what, again, provides an edge. And you're looking for these areas where you can be a little bit better than the other guy that could offset one thing they may do a lot better than you.
Yeah, and I think the one thing about tempo is that it can be a useful stat to have, but it can also tell you just you take shots too early in the shot clock, and they might not be good shots. And if you're taking, if you're taking better, higher quality shots because of your tempo, you're getting better quality shots. That
Well,
makes a
well,
difference, right? So
it
that may be a difference for Michigan State,
all that is true. The other thing I would say is, if you're playing that fast and you're turning the ball over as much as Memphis is,
right?
you might you might think, well, that could be a function of us playing faster than we're really capable of playing. Right. Whereas Michigan State, you look at the tempo they're playing with and you see, oh, they're still in the top 100 turnover percentage. It's not hurting them
Yeah,
to play that
right.
fast. It might be hurting Memphis.
So the fifth and final key, and you sort of briefly mentioned this a little bit ago, talking about the boards, is toughness. And so Memphis looked
Yeah.
like a really tough team. And Michigan State certainly brought the physicality today. And so, I think you just have to match it tomorrow.
Yeah, and this is going to be a great early season test. I think they certainly got tested in that regard by Kansas, because that was a veteran team. And we talked about going into that game, right? They had their top three guys, their returnees, are guys that have played an incredible amount of basketball. Two COVID year guys, and then a fourth year guy who's been a starter pretty much all the way along. And then they added guys through the portal. So that was a real test. This is another one. I think Memphis is, I would describe, as a little more aggressive team than Kansas, though. They want to be, and they're not a turnover ball hawking team, but they do play with some physicality on the defensive end. You're going to have to earn stuff. You're going to have to be strong with the ball, and you're going to have to earn what you get offensively. And as I said, they've got athletes, they've got strength, they've got some size, although not crazy size. And Michigan State's going to have to respond. It's a game with some grown men, put very simply,
All
and
right.
you got to match that.
Okay. I think we'll leave it there. We'll be back after the game, probably late. And I'm not sure depending on timing, if we're going to have an idea who the opponent will be now that we get kind of later into the championship round.
Let's see.
I mean, if
So
because they're going to play whoever, I think their opponent will play after them, I'm guessing.
yeah. Well, I'm going to check that right now.
So I think it's
So
unlikely we'll know who,
here we
who their
go.
opponent is when we record.
Yeah, that game is going to tip at 11, so
Yeah,
probably
that's
not.
no chance you'll get a pregame for that
Yeah,
game. We may just briefly mention the two teams they might play, based on, maybe
right.
one of
It's
those two, I
to
suppose.
and look, no matter who it is, win or lose against Memphis, Michigan State is guaranteed to have a third game that is very tough, because you've got
Yeah,
Auburn and Iowa State in one bracket, and then Dayton and North Carolina in the other. Those are all four good teams. So
yeah,
there's no gimmies. That's why this was important, I think, because
yeah,
there's no way you come out of this 0-3. And in this field, for anybody, that was a distinct possibility because of the
yeah.
caliber of the teams. So that was important for Michigan State. Now you want to focus on trying to win a championship, and you got a chance. I
Yep,
mean,
absolutely.
if we would have taken a poll of listeners before this game, how many of you would rather see Memphis than UConn? I'm going to guess it would be near 100%. Would have preferred the outcome we got. Now they probably don't feel that way now because they think they saw Memphis play very well.
Yeah.
But
Well,
but
obviously they
I
had to. Yeah.
but I do think it still applies. I think Memphis absolutely deserved to win that game, but I don't think objectively they are a tougher opponent than UConn
Sure.
because I think they're more prone to making mistakes and getting loose with things. Whereas I don't expect that from UConn, even if they, even though they lost this game, I think they would require a much sharper effort from Michigan State than it might take to hang with Memphis.
Just a little more looseness from the coach at UConn, right? All right.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap it up there. Again, reach out to me if you want to get your opportunity to get your gutters cleaned for free, just with gutter in the subject line, or if you want to enter the Beat Rod contest, you've got about a week and a half or so till December 3rd to get those entries in. So that's at Eric at tffinots.com. So until next time, the Final Four is not on the schedule. Go green.